Hey all, my name is Chris, and we're going to start this security masterclass in a few minutes. I'm just going to wait for a few more people to populate the channel. There's a few people coming in right now, so I'm just going to wait just a little bit. So we're going to hang tight. I'm going to turn my webcam off because unfortunately this is a very comprehensive topic. So there's a lot of slides that have a lot of information on them, and I don't have space for the webcam, so I'm just going to go to the view where I am not there. Can you guys hear me okay? You guys could answer me in chat, it'd be great. Not very talkative people. Okay. Look, there's a few people in already, so you know what? I think we're going to start right away. So, welcome to the second. Yeah, okay, great. People can hear me. My God, there must be a huge delay. So, welcome to the Second Liberty Finance Masterclass. My name's Chris, and I've been in the IT industry for over 37 years. I've served as CTO on several companies, most of them outside of crypto, and I've consulted for securities practices for several others, including the Bank of Barbados. So that's just to give you a little bit of background. Today we're going to talk about online security in this first of at least two classes. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot more. The reason we need more than one is that security is complex and that there are many vectors of vulnerability and many vectors of attack. Most of them are very easy to understand and protect against, which is what we're covering today, and covers the vast majority of attacks. So if we're able to protect against 80 to 90% of attacks just with basic information, you're covered with most of them, because if there's one thing, hackers and those type of grifters are very, very lazy. So they won't, if they see it's too complicated to compromise you, they're just going to move on to the next target. Other topics, way more difficult to protect against, but we will get into that later on. So if you guys like the format for these classes, we'll then tune into the next one, and we'll dive into that a bit more. So without further ado, let's dive into the security masterclass. So so we're going to go through basic introduction on security. That was an introduction on me and basically the outline, but mostly what security is, and that goes on to understanding the basics, being able to identify the common threats and protecting your assets, going then towards the importance of private keys and your seed phrase. Then we get into two-factor authentication, then safe trading practices, and the conclusion. Then I'll take some questions and answers. This is by far not comprehensive. In other words, it's not totally encompassing as a first course, but you'll see why. There's just this course right here, there's 23 slides. So there's a lot to cover with a very small corner of what security practices are. So the goals and the learning outcome here is to provide basic understanding of online security, to protect your assets and understanding how to manage the protection of your assets. And the learning outcomes for this is hopefully you'll have enough basic knowledge to protect yourself from the most commonly used security exploits. One caveat to this is it's one thing to know the information, but if you don't apply it, and more importantly, if you don't change the way you think about security fundamentals, then you're very exposed. You can take as many courses as you want, but if you don't change the way that you approach your security, then you're still in danger. And you got to make the trade-off between taking the time to exploit you, what it would take for a hacker to exploit you, and stealing your assets, and the time for you to take your protection in order to make you being an unpalatable target. In other words, if it takes too much effort to take your stuff, then I move on to the next person. That's what your goal is. So that's the whole game. The more you take, the more time you take in protecting yourself, the less likely you are to be an interesting target in the risk-reward evaluation by a cyber criminal. And trust me, they do risk-reward evaluations, or else it's just not worth their time going through 10,000 targets one at a time and trying to evaluate if they're good or not. They're going to look at common security vectors. If you're not part of that, then they move on to the next one. So why is security so important? Well, the rise of digital assets and securities, the ever increasing cases of hacks and scams, and as our lives become more and more present online, this is just going to go, this is just going to increase. It's not going to decrease. So I don't expect that to be any less over time. So since the turn of the century and the mass global adoption of the internet, most asset classes pass through the internet. Whether it's your banking, whether it's even phone conversations, everything passes through the internet right now. Everything that has to do with information, and your assets are just a different type of information. So this opportunity is being aggressively exploited by cyber criminals, and if you allow them to, even just slightly, they'll take your assets, and there's generally very little you can do to get them back, if the breach was your fault to start with especially. And even if it wasn't your fault, I've not seen any security firms able to retrieve assets stolen by North Korean, Russian, Chinese, Iranian, or any other agent from uncooperative countries. So always remember that it's too late to apply security practices after the fact. Okay. One very, very important thing to understand is that hackers and scammers don't exploit computer vulnerabilities. They don't. They attack human vulnerabilities. So unlike the picture of the hacker man right there in the slide, which is one of, it's this guy in this very, very cult movie, I don't remember what it's called, but it's amazing. If I remember, I'll just post it in comments later on, but it's a great movie. It's just a kind of a joke movie, but a lot of people have this guy as an idea of what a hacker is, and they're not. They're just a social engineer with access to scraping tools that make acquiring data about you very, very easy. They don't even have to be particularly smart or skilled to do it either. This means that generally, if you apply just a little bit of effort, you can mitigate a lot of the most common attempts. I'll give you an example. Quite a few years ago, in the beginning of the century, like towards 2000, 2001, I can't remember exactly when, but there was a hacker group that was hired by a bank to compromise their system. And these guys were white hats. Their whole thing was, helping companies become more secure. And this bank had just spent a few $1 million on new firewalls and new antiviruses and whatnot. And they came to this group and say, look, we need to know if our systems are safe. And the IT guys were all smugly looking at the hackers saying, they're never going to get through this. So the hackers went and they said, okay, no problem, challenge accepted. And the very next day they got into their systems. They went back to the boardroom with reams and reams of papers and information about the bank and whatnot. And that is because the people in the security group for that bank forgot something very, very fundamental. They forgot to educate the employees. They forgot to tell them not to do certain things. So all these white hat hackers, well, all they did was they took these security keys, USB security keys on dongles, and they infected them with Trojans, and they put them in a parking lot. And they spread them a little bit all over the place. And just like the monkeys that we are, we see a USB key. You're at work and you want to know what's on it. You plug it into your computer, and boom, it was too late. They didn't do anything super complicated. They just understood human nature. And that's what I'm coming to. The point that I'm coming to. These people are social engineers. They know that we're all monkeys. We're wired the same way. Where if we see something, we're going to do it, probably in a very high percentage of likeliness. So they exploited that and they got in. So you got to take that into consideration. They're not hacking your computers. They're hacking you. They understand you. So the most common attack vectors, most successful cyber attacks can be attributed to a single determining cause. Almost 95% of all successful hacks and exploits surround the same root cause. And this is the most important lesson that you guys can take from this. The first one is laziness. The second one is laziness. And guess what? The third one's also laziness. Getting the point? I mean, the lazier you are, the easier it is to exploit you or your systems. It's just the way it works. Just the way it works. I mean, if you're lazy, they're going to exploit that. So whenever it comes to protecting your assets, even if you're not particularly proactive everywhere else in your life, there's never any good reason to delay applying safety to any platform or device that concerns your assets. Later is always too late. You can't go back in time having been hacked to take corrective action. I'll repeat this concept often because for some strange reason, it seems to be the hardest for most to grasp. So there's no worse feeling of helplessness than getting your assets stolen, whether they be at home or in your crypto wallet. It feels the same way. So just don't get there. Make sure that you're not being lazy every time when it comes to protecting your assets. So what's laziness exactly? Well, very simple. Using the same password everywhere, and I mean, I know a lot of people that do this, using simple or predictable passwords. Not being suspicious enough because, effort. Well, be suspicious, be proactive, be not lazy. Not creating good backups in safe locations, whether it's keys, your seeds, or other important files. Storing your passwords and sensitive info in predictable places, like under your keyboard, post-it notes, or on the roof of your drawer, or behind a picture frame, etc. I mean, we're a bunch of monkeys, like I said earlier on, and we tend to do exactly the same thing, even when we think we're being really clever. I mean, statistics say that all of you have valuables, information, jewelry, etc., whatever, private keys, doesn't matter, in at least one of the following locations. Your dresser drawers, like I mentioned, under your mattress. I know this is cliche, but people still do it. Portable safes. I mean, those little cheapy safes with a little hinge and a small key. People, for some funny reason, thinks that their stuff is safe in there. Medicine cabinet, in a pill bottle, empty pill bottle in the medicine cabinet. That happens almost in every household. Office drawers, under your keyboard, vases, kitchen freezer, storage areas, things like that. I know that I've mentioned probably at least one that you guys are doing. And that's normal. We are wired the same way. We have the unfortunate tendency of thinking that we're all unique, but for a lot of the things that we do, we're not. We're wired the same way. So be less predictable. Think like a thief before storing your valuables anywhere. And why is this so dangerous? Well, let me give you an example. User John Smith has 15 accounts with Facebook, Amazon, Gmail, Netflix, Etsy, Alibaba, Binance, KuCoin, Mexi, online banking, the hardware store, etc. It doesn't matter. He's using the same password and email combination everywhere. Well, only one of these services needs to be hacked for the rest of them to be vulnerable. That's why you never use the same password everywhere. And if you can, and I strongly recommend this, use different emails and usernames everywhere too. I know it's a pain in the ass, but I mean, I don't have the same email used anywhere. Most of them are on Proton Mail or other platforms as well, and they're unique. You can even alias your emails if you want them to all go into the same account, but that could be dangerous as well. That means your master account's got to be very protected. But I'll go more into detail with that in future courses. That's outside of the scope of this one. But if you can, especially when it comes to money and assets, different emails, different passwords. I mean, if your Facebook gets hacked and your Twitter gets hacked and you're not this huge online creator and whatnot, you're using the same account on both. Well, maybe it's not that bad as long as the account information you're using for those accounts is not the same that you're using for online banking, exchanges, etc. Where it really counts. So no service is safe from that. I mean, Yahoo in 2015, there's 3 billion user accounts that were compromised. Equifax on 2017, 150 million users. So if you're in North America, you're particularly exposed to that. Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, which is the planet, But 90 million users there, and Facebook after that in 2021 had another hack of 533 million users. LinkedIn 700 million users. I mean, no one's safe from this. JP Morgan, Home Depot, MySpace, Frontfinder, Marriott, Adobe, eBay, Target, Capital One, Cash App, you name it, they've all gotten exploited. That means that chances are, and these are the ones that are in North America that I am familiar with, but chances are one of the services that you guys are using somewhere in the world has been targeted, and usually they don't make a huge splash about it. So there's a good chance that your email and password are on a database somewhere up for sale. So, you know, if you're using the same email and password everywhere, chances are they're going to be able to use it to access your Binance account, your KuCoin account, your online banking account. It doesn't matter. So take that into consideration. Yeah, using simple and predictable passwords. Now, people don't seem to always understand what that means. Using simple and predictable passwords, I mean, this right here, I'm going to put a password on the screen right there. Exclamation mark, capital J, 210281, small s, lowercase s, I should say, and hashtag or caret. No, it is hashtag, sorry. That looks like a pretty good password, right? Well, no, because unfortunately, the person that that wrote that password is called John Smith, and he's born on the 21st of February, 1981, and adding the character exclamation mark and the hashtag in such a weak password doesn't help, because a cracking software using a dictionary attack, which is something that will put in a list of all of your social information that was scraped off of Facebook, because you know Facebook and a bunch of other social platforms have your date of birth, your favorite pet, your child's name, your best friends, favorite colors, etc. I mean, those are that's the info a hacker is going to use to crack your password. They're going to put that in a dictionary file, and the cracking software is going to use that to just crack your password. I mean, it's fun to share these things so that people can get, you know, give you birthday wishes and whatnot. But I mean, my birthday is the 1st of January 1981, and it's like that everywhere. I do not put my birthday anywhere. It's 1181. Easy to remember. It's like that, you know, if I get asked that again, I know what to give, but never am I going to give my real birthday. So almost 70% of people actually put familiar things in their passwords. That's a very high number. So it's worth the risk of them, not the risk, but worth the effort of them just creating a dictionary file on you and just going to town. So use randomized long passwords that have zero relation with any of your publicly available data. So take that in consideration as well. Your password should look like a mess. It shouldn't look like something that, you know, is easy to remember. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. Same thing with your private keys and seed phrases. I'm assuming that most of this audience has crypto wallets, either online, offline, or hardware. These wallets provide either private keys, seed phrases, or in some instances both. So just like your passwords, these need to be kept in protected. I've seen too many people just not taking the time to record the seed phrase or make private key backups and lose all of their funds. There's almost no recourse if you lose your private key or seed phrase. And I'm saying almost, there's a caveat to that, and I'm not going to get into it, but let's just say there is no recourse. Here, to put it as clearly as possible, you know that the Bitcoin network has never been hacked, right? There's exchanges have been hacked, wallets have been hacked, but the Bitcoin network has never been hacked. This is despite the fact that the space is full of cyber geeks, and the Bitcoin network's been running since 2009. Well, your private keys and seed phrase are generated with the same type of encryption. Anyone selling you a recovery service is generally just trying to make this a bigger loss for you by taking your money, or is misinformed. The only time, okay, I'll get into it a bit, the only time there is a recourse is if you do remember some of your private keys, enough that brute forcing it might get back your funds, but I mean, you're still talking about a needle in a haystack and very low likelihood. I've only heard of one case of someone being able to do that, and I think there was like almost 70% of the key that was available. So, just don't bank on that. Protect your keys. So depending on the amount stored on those keys, think of using FirePro Safe in a hidden location or a bank vault if the amount warrants it. Like if you got 200,000, 300,000, or how much is a lot of money to you, and you're storing it in your sock drawer on a USB key, and you haven't encrypted that key, and you only have one copy, well then you get what you deserve if your key becomes unreadable or if someone steals it. So optimally, make several copies on USB keys. So half of your private key or seed phrase on one drive, and then the other half on another drive. Put one half in a fireproof vault, the other half in a bank vault or a trusted family member in a fireproof safe at their place as well. And you can do a three-way as well. I'm a huge fan of having a three-way schema for your keys, because it's impossible to get all your stuff under duress or in a very short amount of time, and it allows you to make sure that even if your house burns down, well, you've got at least enough of the elements in different places to be able to retrieve that afterwards. So think about how you want to protect them, and just do it accordingly. Make backups and encrypt your stuff. So we talked about wallets, crypto wallets. I'm going to talk also about what type of wallet there are out there, and what you should and shouldn't use. Actually, let me just take that back. Excuse me. Throat's getting dry. I'm just going to grab a sip. You can use every type of wallet, and every type of wallet has its place. But there are certain scenarios where it doesn't make sense to take certain wallets, and I'm going to explain with each one. So you got the online ones, the MetaMask, the Exodus, Electron Wallet, which is usually either a browser extension or a piece of software where you put your money in. These should be transactional. You don't want to put enormous amounts of money on those things unless they are offline. In other words, on a computer that never gets onto the internet, and you're just using them to generate addresses, and then after that you close off those wallets and you use them a bit like cold storage. But there's other methods of doing this that are not this, and these should only be used for very transactional purposes. That means you're using them to transact with exchanges or transact with services, and you've got smaller amounts on them. So like that, even if your systems get compromised, well, you're not losing too much. And that's the very key thing right here, not losing too much. You're not putting all your eggs in the same basket, and you're making sure that if ever something does happen, well, you've got most of your assets elsewhere in better protected areas, which brings me to offline wallets like cold wallets. Ledger, Trezor are a few examples. Those are hardware wallets that usually require several interventions to be able to spend. So you need a PIN, you need a few other things. Sometimes you can even combine it with other methods of encryption to be able to protect them as well. So if you only have the ledger, you still can't access them even if you have the PIN. And they're used for longer term storage. Like you could use this, or you can use an air-gapped device. I like using air-gapped devices, but they're a pain in the ass for people that are less technically inclined, especially if you have to do transfers and making sure that you're not making them vulnerable. So let's say for most people, offline cold ledgers are more than adequate enough. And there's still the paper wallet. There are tools that you can run offline to generate a unique paper wallet address where you can store your effects. But that's not used very much. But it's it's good for long-term storage, just like a cold wallet. But it's very. You've got to re-import the keys, usually in the form of a QR, into something else to be able to use it. So it's not very convenient. It's not as convenient as a cold wallet. And don't forget that paper is usually pretty vulnerable to everything, like fire, like water, like everything. So long-term storage medium, such as some people, there are some services for that where you can give them your keys and they'll engrave them for you. Although why you would ever do that and give your keys to somebody else, I don't understand. But if you've got an engraver, you could probably engrave it on something metallic and put half of it in one volt and the other half on another volt and stainless steel or something like that, so they won't melt easily in a fire. But those are the types of wallets and the ones that are commonly used. The first two are very common. The last one is not. And finally, and you notice this one's more in red. I didn't want to put the red too high contrast because it didn't look good on the blue. But exchange wallets like Binance, Coinbase, KuCoin, those exchanges themselves. And I mean, they incentivize you to keep a large amount of money on there, through staking and whatnot. But you should never leave or stake money on exchanges ever. They should only be used for transactional purposes. I mean, I won't even trade something if there is no cold wallet equivalent. If I'm going to trade it and sit on it for a long time, I'm going to buy something, take it off the exchange, put it on a cold wallet, and sit on it for months or years at a time. But anything that's on exchanges should be transactional only. That means that you're going into doing margin trading like the previous masterclass was talking about. Well, you're going to have some money on the exchange. You shouldn't have all your money on the exchange, but whatever you're going to be using for trading. And then as soon as you finish and close your trade, take it off the exchange, put it in a wallet. And there's no good reason to leave something on your exchange unless you're in an active trade that has to be done on that exchange. In other words, you're in a margin trade or something like that. They should only be used for transactional purposes. Never put large amounts. Okay, so we're going to get into phishing, and I messed up the intro on this. I forgot the intro title, sorry. So So speaking of exchanges, one thing that we have to be extremely wary of is phishing. I mean, I think a lot of people have a general understanding of what phishing is. I'm going to explain it a bit more granularly. So it's an attack where a scammer pretends to be someone else, usually trying to get you to act fast in order to compromise your account. So they're going to use impersonation deceptive messages on email, social platforms, etc., containing alarming information like urgent, your account has been hacked, or urgent, we're going to be closing your account. I'm sure everybody here has gotten that at least once. If you don't click this link and change your password or identify yourself, whatever. These attacks contain links to fake websites, malicious software, or both, and they're designed to steal your personal information, especially in a method that'll make you react quickly, so urgent and whatnot. So now that we've got a basic understanding on how to keep your assets safe and all that, you really want to take care that you understand how to also not fall into the pitfalls. So usually the vectors for phishing are going to be in emails and DMs. It's usually very private. So emails are private, DMs are private. They're not going to do a phishing attempt directly on a Telegram group with 20,000 members. Usually the members will target you, open it up, and then say, there's a problem with your exchange or your wallet or whatever, and click on this link to identify yourself or whatever. It's usually urgent or threatening. It requests sensitive information, has suspicious attachments. They want you to download something that is going to execute on your computer. In an email, it's usually has bad grammar, or it's generally very unprofessional. And if anything is too good to be true, well, then it's probably a phishing attempt. Banks, exchanges, and most online services, including Amazon, Netflix, and all that, will never ask you for sensitive emails online, sensitive information from emails online, nor send you login links. They just won't send you a login link. They're going to tell you, if there is something, they're going to tell you should log into your account, and they won't provide a login link. They're expecting you to know where to go. So, and why is that important to understand that? Well, here, you know what? I just talked about this, so I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, maybe I'll go back to that slide after. Well, let's take KuCoin for example. If you right-click anywhere on the page and you click on View Page Source, you're going to see something that looks like this. So you can Control A, select all, and copy all that. And then you save that into a text file. Okay, let's say we call that test.html, and you save it on your desktop. Double click on that test.html, and you, in seconds, you have just copied KuCoin. All this is KuCoin. You know, the only difference between this and the slide before is a QR code that's right here that didn't render. But I mean, I could take a picture and just place it in this placeholder and make it look the same. Okay? So, and most people will click on this link to log in, and you can do the same thing to copy the login page. And then from that login page, what you're going to do is, if you know how to code a little bit and it's not that complicated, you're going to take the information that's been clicked into that those fields and store it on a database, and then it's going to redirect you to the real KuCoin, so like that you don't even know what the hell happened. You don't know that you just place your username and software in another database. You just think it didn't work, or your cookies are messed up or something like that. And then you're going to log in again and go about your business. Then as soon as there's money in that account, poof, it's gone. So phishing is extremely simple to do. I mean, you can set this up. I'm not going to show you how, because we're here to protect against it, not show you how easy it is to do this and give you bad ideas. But I just want to show you how easy it is to fake a website. I mean, these are identical. And it took me exactly, I did it earlier on for this presentation yesterday, and it took me exactly, it's under a minute, probably around 45 seconds to do all this. So, you know, someone who takes a little bit of time is able to get several $100,000s just to fool you and getting you into login and putting your names there. So the takeaways from phishing: always be suspicious of any email or message coming into you that you're not expecting, especially urgent ones. Never click on links in those messages. Always use 2FA, two-factor authentication, to protect your account. Not SMS, in other words, not mobile 2FA. Use software 2FA or hardware 2FA like a YubiKey, Google Auth, and don't save your stuff on the cloud. You know, do backups for your keys and whatnot, but don't save stuff on the cloud. Check your URLs, protect against typing errors and misdirection. Like if you type KuCoin with a 0 or KuCoin with an L instead of an I, you know, because if you're not looking directly at the address, it kind of looks the same. So I could buy this domain, kucoin.com, and host the files that I was talking to you about before. You would never see that it's not an I, that it's an L, because I mean, look at the address bars. They're not, you know, they're not that big. You're not necessarily looking at the URL, and then you're blissfully putting in your email, your login and password, and you'll never know the difference. KuCoin, however, were very proactive. They bought this domain and they bought this domain, and it redirects their own domain to protect against phishing. So kudos to KuCoin. Binance has not done that. Use anti-phishing phrases anywhere it's offered, like on KuCoin, Mixi, a few other places. I believe Binance has it as well. You can actually have a phrase, an identification phrase, in your security settings that's going to pop up whenever you come to log in, so you know that it's not a phishing site. It is actually the site that you're supposed to be logging into. So this is another thing that's good to do as well. Okay, to get back to 2FA, I spoke about it before. What is it? Well, it stands for two-factor authentication. In other words, there's types of 2FA. In other words, you have to log in twice. You're logging in with username and password, and then it asks you for an extra login challenge, which is usually a time-based token generated on your device, like Google Authenticator or YubiKey or Authy. An SMS into your device, which I said is a big no-no, because of SIM swapping and you know, also cloning and a few other things as well, where people could just get the response that you're expecting. Biometrics like your eye, your thumb, your face, don't recommend that. It's kind of pointless to have those type of biometrics, since you know you could get knocked out and they could just use it anyway. So it's it is pointless. Biometrics is not good. The only one that's really good in there is a time-based 2FA that is not stored on the cloud. So what's best? As I said, time-based token generated on your device. That's Google Authenticator, Authy, YubiKey. But do not enable cloud backups, because if ever you enable cloud backups and your email that is connected to this gets compromised, well, not only do they have access to all your emails, and they can, they can reset your password on KuCoin, Binance, or the bank or whatever, but they'll also be able to restore a backup of your 2FA on another device and be able to answer that challenge correctly. So, protection. Well, basic protection, knowing all of this. Obviously, use an antivirus. Don't care what operating system you're using. None of them are safe from remote access Trojans. Those are those pieces of software that allows people remote control of your devices. This is not just computers. It's also your phones or tablets or whatnot. So I don't care what operating system you're using. None of them are safe from rats or other compromising software. I don't care if you think, Apples are the best or Linux is the best or Windows, God bless, is the best for being antivirus or virus proof, but they're all the same. There's no platform that's safe. So take that in consideration and make sure you've got an antivirus, and a good antivirus. And that's, something like, not McAfee, not Norton antivirus, but you'll have platforms like Trend Micro is very good. It's not heavy, and they do 0 day, probably better than most. And you've got others as well like that. So just do a bit of research on that. Also, don't install software on your trading transactional device. So if you're trading, you should not be trading on the computer, the same computer that your kids use to play online browser games, where they click on everything. I mean, I know some people that got compromised like that. They let their kids, because there's only one computer in the living room. There was no offices or anything like that. There are no laptops. I mean, I think that's not as common today. Almost everybody's got a laptop or a pad or whatever, and they do their stuff on that. But don't install software on, the common computer. Don't trade from the common household computer where your kids have access. Not password protected, no antivirus. They click on everything. They install browser sniffers and whatnot, password sniffers on browsers without even knowing that they do. So you don't want to do that. Don't install browser extensions too if you don't absolutely have to. I mean, there's no reason for you to have search helper, this and that and the other. Nothing in life is free. If there's an extension, well, there's a reason for that. I mean, someone's making money software. Even MetaMask. I mean, MetaMask is free. Absolutely. They're making money off your transactions. So, there's nothing for nothing. So, yeah, if you want to install MetaMask, sure, go right ahead. I mean, if that's the only way you can trade because you're using a Chromebook and you need to use a browser extension, go for it. But don't install, the search things and the anti-blockers and the this and that and the other. You're just looking for trouble, and someone's going to take your stuff. Treat your trading platform like it's your bank. You can play on something else. Absolutely. And I spoke about Chromebook before. These are, relatively safe devices because the operating system is very limited, but they're only relatively safe if you don't install a whole bunch of browser extensions on them. So if you have to use MetaMask, you should have, the Chrome that comes with the Chromebook and MetaMask, and that's it. That's all. That becomes your trading computer, and that's it. Nothing else gets on that. So, conclusions. The crypto world is evolving very rapidly. Security measures from yesterday don't necessarily work for today. So, it's important to stay updated on security practices. Look for accounts that regularly talk about security on X. I don't have a list for you right now, but you guys know of a few of them, like ZachXBT will expose scams. There's Mr. Reboot. I'm gonna have to get you exactly the way he types his name, because it's what letters and numbers. But I'll post that on at a later date. I'll probably just post it in Telegram in Liberty Finance and Discord as well. So, but look for accounts that regularly talk about security on X without being too pedantic or too complicated either. Always prioritize security over convenience. I think I touched that on several occasions where it's important to never be lazy and prioritize the security. Convenient, if it's easy, then you're probably doing it wrong. It's supposed to be inconvenient for you, because the more inconvenient you make it for yourself, it becomes massively more inconvenient for a hacker. That means if it means you've got to store your long unconventional password somewhere where no one's going to find it, and in two pieces because you can't remember it all the time, then I understand that. But if you're doing that, then a hacker is not going to be able to brute force it either, or use common security, social knowledge about you to be able to hack it. Use protection with good antivirus, and refrain from installing browser extensions like I just mentioned before. So this is the end of part one. We're going to cover this in much greater detail, where there's a ton more stuff to talk about, but in order to make this more digestible, we need to keep them a bit more bite-sized. So this was, not by any measure a comprehensive starter on security, but as I said, we'll take the more complex and more expansive ones at a later date. The next ones are going to go more in depth in certain concepts as well, and add a few ones, including man-in-the-middle attacks and what they are, ransomware, public Wi-Fi's, and how to deal with them, public conventions as well, because some of you travel to crypto conventions, and the do's and don'ts there are kind of important. VPNs, which ones to use, how to use them, when you should use them, and alternate browsing solutions, basic encryption and tools, etc., etc. So let's have a few questions before we end, and please post them on YouTube chat. I'll wait for a couple of minutes, and once there's been more than a minute between questions, well, I'll close the chat, and then we'll just schedule on the next one in a few weeks. Thanks for attending, and I'll just wait for your questions. Yeah, the question is right there. Can you suggest any good virus guards? Antivirus. Trend Micro, TREND MICRO, is a very good one. Avast is getting better. I'm not a huge fan because it's got a very, very big memory and system print, but they are getting better. If you want, I will post a list of good ones. One that don't need a huge technical knowledge as well to be able to use, and that can be used on any platform, because most of the good ones are platform agnostic, so they'll work on Apple, Linux, and Microsoft as well. Next one is great presentation. Chris, I have some questions about the different passwords for different platforms. How do I remember every different password do I need to write it down in a paper or something? Well, basically there's several methods. Believe it or not, all my passwords are in my brain. So if I develop Alzheimer's, I'm screwed. And most of my passwords have between 24 and 30. I think my longest one is 37 characters. They're very complex. They're not using common English words. So they're a mix of garbage, as well as things that only I will remember, because I don't have those informations posted anywhere. So they are a hot garbage mess, mixed with characters and whatnot. And I do have a memorized convention. If ever I start feeling my memory starting to slip, though, I will definitely write them down. And I don't recommend everybody do this, because it requires a lot of practice and a lot of tricks to be able to memorize these and not forget them. Another way, and a good alternative, is to have those passwords cut into 2 or more pieces, and you hide them in different places. For example, and I'm going to completely randomize an example, you could have like Binance, you know, their color scheme is yellow. So you would put yellow, so like that, you know, it's associated with Binance, and that's the name for that, okay? I'm not saying use yellow as your password. Underneath that, you would have the first parts of your password, like maybe the first 10 characters. And then in another safe or another location, you would have yellow too. And you'd have the rest of that password. Or, you know, Nance, and then you'd have the rest of that password. So yeah, yellow, you know, yellow and Nance have the two halves of your password. And they're at different places in your house. This is a very simple example, but that's what you have to do. You have to find a convention that you're going to remember, and that you're going to be able to use later on, as well as being able to hide them. I suggest also putting them on encrypted USB keys. You can encrypt a USB if you've got an operating system like Apple or Linux, because I mean they're both using Linux-based software. You can actually encrypt them using the tools that come with them. It's a bit too complicated to explain in this one. You can do this with Windows as well if you can download something called 7-Zip, which is an archiver which allows you to use a long password and use that as encryption as well. So you can put those on USB keys and hide them a bit all over the place as well. So it's another way you can do that. I hope that answers your question. Okay, I looked in both Telegram and YouTube, and I think that was the only questions. I hope that means that everything was clear. If there's anything else, please don't be shy. Just post them in Discord or Telegram, and I'll try to address them. Oh, so it's very complicated. Yeah. That was a follow-up to my my answer to the password question. It was so it's very complicated, but I get the point. It needs to be inconvenience. Thanks for the answer. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. If it's inconvenient for you, it's going to be more than inconvenient for someone that's trying to compromise you. Can you recommend for use hardware wallet as SafePal hardware wallet? I think the question is, can you recommend a hardware wallet? SafePal hardware wallet. Let me just... SafePal, what is that? Crypto. Oh, I don't know anything about SafePal. Own your crypto venture. What is that? Oh, so it's basically a software wallet or a hardware wallet. So it's both, I believe. Yeah. So it's an app, an extension for your browser or hardware wallet. I don't know anything about it. I will look into it. I know Ledger and Trezor. Between the two, I do prefer Ledger for now. I mean, and that depends. I mean, in time, a while ago, I preferred Trezor over Ledger, but you know, sometimes they don't update their security fast enough, and one overtakes the other. So I will look at SafePal. I don't know it that well. I mean, it's very reasonably priced. I'm just going to check though if they've compromised on security at that price. $49, $50 US is really good for a hardware wallet. So, but I'll let you know in as a follow-up in Telegram or Discord. Okay, great. So it doesn't look like there's any new questions that came up. So thank you very much for participating in this masterclass. And I will get together with Zen to look at the draw for the participants, and we'll keep you updated on the next masterclass. Thank you very much. Have yourselves a great one.